Update. Am I the a-hole for accidentally calling out a new colleague on lying about her language skills? Original story. Last week, a new colleague, Kathy, 33 female, started at my 25 female workplace. She instantly stood out in the team because she seems like someone who is very loud and assertive. Two of my colleagues, me and Kathy, were having coffee in a break room. We were the only ones in there and we were sitting far apart when the subject of travel was brought up. My colleague said she wasn't booking trips anymore because it'll probably get cancelled because of the bug anyway. Kathy immediately cut in about how sad she is because she travels so often, and she goes on these far exotic trips to Europe as her hobby. When I think exotic, I think the Bahamas or something instead of Europe, but cool. Kathy then jokes about how all this no-travel business is making her fear that she'll lose some of her foreign language skills. I asked what languages she spoke. She claimed to be fluent in 3 European languages, among which were French and Dutch. Kathy said she was at a native speaker level and went on about how people in Europe were always surprised when they found out she wasn't from there. I was excited because I never get to speak Dutch over here. I was raised in Belgium, which has 3 national languages, French and Dutch, which are my mother tongues and the most commonly spoken there, and German. It's quite common to be pretty fluent in at least 2 out of the 3 languages in Belgium because you're required to learn them at school, along with English, from a young age. I told Kathy, oh fun, we have something in common then, in Dutch. She immediately pulled this sour face and asked me if that was supposed to be Dutch. I said yes. She laughed awkwardly and said she couldn't understand because I have a terrible accent and must not be that good at speaking it. Now see, I don't have an accent. I speak Dutch more fluently than I speak English. I told Kathy that I grew up speaking Dutch and speak it to my family all the time. She got miffed and asked what languages I speak and where I'm from. I told her I'm from Belgium, so I speak French, and I added what she just said you speak as well. Cool, we can speak French instead. I acknowledged that I was a bit of a prick here, because by that point I knew she probably lied about speaking French as well. She then shoved her chair back and angrily got up, said whatever, and stumped off. It was awkward. My other colleagues just kinda shrugged and said she shouldn't have lied. However, she later approached me and told me I embarrassed her by acting superior about my European heritage. I told her there was no way for me to know she'd lie about speaking those languages. She rolled her eyes and told me I was immature. Then a colleague told me that Kathy had called me a little B-word who enjoys bullying new colleagues behind my back later. I don't think I was a bully at all, but I don't want this to turn into a huge thing. Do I just apologize to keep the peace? Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. I embarrassed her by acting superior about my European heritage. I mean, not that, but you are superior to her in that you don't feel the need to lie to impress people. Kathy called me a little B-word who enjoys tormenting new colleagues. Oh, Kathy. Talking aloud in the mirror again? Kathy calling Opie immature is rich, especially when she insulted Opie and used a derogatory term. I honestly would report Kathy to HR in case she decides to submit a complaint against Opie and spin the narrative to her favor. She already showed her character by lying at the break room. I would be in high alert to what lie she will tell to HR. Not the a-hole. She claimed to speak a language. It's not your fault that she lied. It's a risk she ran in telling the lie. This is literally a plot device in comedy movies. Someone purports to be fluent in a language to a person who actually is fluent. Said fluent person gets excited and says, OMG, yay, in the foreign language. And a person who lied gets flustered and exposed. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She said she spoke the language. You spoke to her in the language. She didn't understand it. She got embarrassed. The problem is her. Edit. I'm not sure about escalating this to HR, which a lot of people have told me I have to do. I feel like this might make me look immature to the rest of my colleagues, of which I am the youngest, and it might not need to go that far. It depends on if Kathy is willing to put this behind her and be professional. If all else fails, I do have witnesses who would be honest about what happened, so I think I might be in the clear if she tries to twist the story. Some people think she might not have understood me because she's fluent in Dutch but learned it in the Netherlands, which has different accents. While it is true that the Netherlands and Flanders have different accents, I didn't speak a very specific dialect like West Flemish or something. I spoke the general Dutch you'd see in the news in Flanders. I didn't speak quickly to try and make it incomprehensible to set her up. I genuinely believed she spoke Dutch because that's what she was saying, so I talked to her in normal, conversational Dutch. The same kind of Dutch I'd use in a work environment back in my home country. The same kind of Dutch I used with friends from the Netherlands. And now for the update. Many people gave the advice to go to HR. Others said not to go to HR because that would be escalating the situation. I decided not to go to HR right then, but I did take the advice to write down what happened, with the time and the names of the other colleagues present just in case. I thought the situation might blow over, because Kathy was probably just embarrassed. Well, I was wrong. Kathy kept being cold to me, rolling her eyes at me in meetings and talking behind my back. Another colleague came to confront me at one point to ask me why I'd been so mean. Apparently, Kathy was telling a different version of what happened. Kathy said that I'd said mean things to her in Dutch and was making fun of her in Dutch, so no one else but her could understand. She was smart enough to only tell those stories to colleagues who weren't actually there for it. Word got around and it turned into a bigger issue, with a couple people actually questioning my character, mostly just colleagues that don't work very close to me. HR got wind of it after a while, and I got called in close to a month after the incident. They had already met with Kathy, and she'd told them the "she cursed me out in Dutch and was very mean to me" story. I told them the full story and everything that happened after. They asked me if there was anyone else present who could confirm this, so those colleagues came and told them that Kathy had lied about speaking a language, stormed out, and then started calling me a B-word, etc. to others. They thanked me for my time, and I got on with work. Nothing happened until a week later when I was informed that Kathy was asked to leave. Apparently, Kathy had doubled down on the lies and told everyone I was the one lying, and she did speak those languages. So my boss told her in that case she'd have no problem talking to one of our Canadian colleagues, who wasn't involved in the situation, in French in front of him, just to confirm. At this point, Kathy admitted she had been lying. It turned out she didn't speak a word of French either, or Norwegian, which was the third language she was lying about. This was enough for them to let her go, because part of the reason they hired her was that they were so impressed by her speaking multiple languages and work experiences she'd had abroad. The work experiences were made up as well. I'm just happy it's over. I'm confident it wasn't really my fault it blew up now. If it wasn't me who caught her in a lie, someone else probably would have down the line. The few people who kind of believed her ended up coming to me and apologizing for questioning me about what happened, so that's all sorted. Edit. Some people asking why they didn't test her language skills in the hiring process. Our jobs don't actually require us to speak Dutch, French, or Norwegian. I think they probably just saw it as a plus or something that made her stand out from other candidates. Kathy at next job. Okay, no common languages. I speak a dead language. Colleague. Oh really? Say something. Kathy, sweating. Dead language as in speaking to the dead. Colleague. Huh? Kathy, panicked. I previously worked at the coroner's office. I would love to know what was going through Kathy's mind when she decided to escalate and double down on the lies. Given that she also made up other large chunks of her resume, I think maybe she subscribes to the theory that people will be too stunned at the audacity to do anything about it. I remember reading this and thinking, why the hell would someone lie about being able to speak another language? It's such an easy found out lie that's laughable. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling a neighbor she can't expect only old people to live in our street? I moved into my house about 2 or 3 years ago. I'm 30, look 20, with a family. It's also a British town, and my house is semi-detached in a street of terraced houses. I'm quite the introvert, so apart from my direct neighbors, I really made no attempt at getting to know the rest around my house. That being said, if someone speaks to me, I will happily speak to them. Cue to the incident. An old-age pensioner came up to me while I was taking stuff to my car, and she started asking questions. The usual stuff you ask new neighbors, but then she asked me when I planned on moving, which I thought was quite unusual. I told her I had no plans to move yet, and then she went on to talk about how young people have started moving into the street, and it is much so noisy, especially those with families. She knew I have kids, but they barely spend any time outside, and how she wished it went back to a street of old people. For about 10 minutes, there was nothing but low-key insults about young people. I couldn't really excuse myself as I had stuff to do with my car that was time-sensitive. So in the end, I just said, you can't expect only old people to live in a street. Eventually, they grow old and die. Maybe wait a few years and we'll be old, and you'll have your street back if you're still around. She looked at me as if I just murdered her family and walked off. In the heat of the moment, I felt justified. But thinking back on it, I pretty much told her she will be dead soon, which no one really likes hearing. She just wouldn't stop talking about the good old times. Now for the comments. Not Day Hall. Hello, fellow British person moving to an elderly area. I have had very similar conversations. My entire street appears to be in the 60 to 80 year range. I think they've forgotten other people exist. They get mad when my 4-year-old plays outside, and have made comments about how this trampoline and paddling pool are an eyesore in our back garden in our private space, but I guess they can see it from the windows, and how they missed a previous resident who was such a sweet old man who had a lovely garden that I've ruined with my kids' toys. He died. Sometimes these people need to be reminded about how selfish they're being, and that retirement villages exist if they only ever want to encounter other elderly people. I certainly don't want anyone to die anytime soon, but at the same time, I really hope a few more families move into my area. My grandmother in the US had a young family moved into the neighborhood, and they're all delighted to have a child around. They go to the child's school place, have her over to bake cookies, take her to swim lessons. Kid got a dozen new grandparents. That is sweet. US here, and we were one of the few young families when we moved into our, back then, mostly older neighborhood. One of the original owners was still there when we moved in, and she asked me to say hi when I walked my baby down the street. She was an adorable woman who happily shared a 70-year history of the neighborhood. But we mostly heard how happy everyone was to have kids in the neighborhood. Not Day Hall. This woman wants to stand around in your yard and insult you, ask when you plan on leaving, and make you feel unwelcome. Yet she can't handle you saying anything back? Being old doesn't automatically entitle her to respect, nor does it give her a free pass to act like that. Ooh, similar situation here. English town, previously full of old people, and a few young people have moved in. The old folks are genuinely horrendous. Everyone 55, or maybe 60s? Basically those not retired. And under is trundling along, trying to get along with their neighbors, being respectful while still living their lives. And then there's this huddle of old 65-plus a-holes, constantly moaning about gardens being a mess, people sitting outside after 7 p.m. Anyone has barbecue? Better not go on past 6. Want a bit of appropriately volumed, non-offensive music playing mid-late afternoon? Well, you may as well be Hitler. Not Day Hall. And I don't know when it got to be standard that older people are the crappiest, most entitled, and relenting horrible human beings, but this is definitely the case today. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my friend a home? Me, 32 female, and my husband, 36 male, have a 3-month-old baby. It's been very stressful, and I've had really bad PPD, so it's taken me a while to come to terms with life again. I'm getting there, but still very fragile. I have a friend, Terry, 45 female, who I've known for a couple of years. She's been fine. We aren't great friends, but we're okay. She's from Italy, so doesn't have many friends here, and came here with her husband. She doesn't work nor have any interest in working. It's unclear if she can work due to her visa, but she has never stated she can't work, just that she actively chooses not to. I asked a mutual friend, and they said that she can legally work and has done occasional jobs here, but then didn't want to, so stopped. Me and my husband have recently bought a 4-bedroom house for our growing family. It's really stretched us financially, but will be worth it in the long run. So the issue. Terry has recently had to leave her husband. Turned out he was secretly taking substances and he was pretty horrendous to her. She came to stay with us for a few days after it happened, and it was really intense. I cried most nights as I couldn't support her and manage my own stuff, and she just wanted to be involved in everything when I needed and asked for a bit of space. Eventually, 5 days later, I sat her down and asked her to find somewhere else to stay as I was really struggling. She was fine with it, and we spoke for a while about why. A friend of hers paid for her to stay in an Airbnb for a month, which is great. But she's now running out of days. She called me a few times crying, saying she will be homeless and has no one else to rely on, and I need to pay for Airbnb or give her a room. I've really struggled with this because as much as I want to help a person in need, I really can't live with her, and she's already told a mutual friend that she plans on just staying with us for a year till she has to go home. I spoke to some friends and they are divided on it. Some say I'm the a-hole for not offering her a room when we have space, and others have said my mental health is too fragile to manage it. Internet citizens, what say you? Not the a-hole, not even a little. Terry could have looked for a job, filed for divorce, or found other arrangements. Instead, she decided to come back to your home, where she will presumably mooch off you, not paying rent, utility, or food. You need to prioritize yourself here. PPD is no joke. New parenting is hard. Terry can find another person to mooch off. No kidding. And the fact that she's planning to stay with Opie for a year is presumptuous and entitled. Opie needs to focus on Opie's needs. Why aren't the friends calling you the a-hole offering to give her a place to stay? Not the a-hole. It's easy to be generous with someone else's house, money and time. Opie's friends are a-holes. So in defense of the friends, most of them don't have any spare room, so Terry would be on a sofa. But you are right. I'm not sure they'd offer their own spare rooms if they had them. Have lived out of my car with my dog because of DV. Couches were freaking great. Super grateful for everyone who took us in, but also incredibly grateful for the people who respected our friendship enough to tell me, no, they can't handle it right then. It's so much better to get an honest no, and never build up a secret resentment for offering a service they couldn't actually emotionally afford. I hope things are better for you now. That's a tough situation. I really appreciate your perspective. Thank you. Am I the a-hole for not acknowledging I have a sister? 9 years ago, we found out that my 28 female mother had a 5-year affair with someone she met from work. My parents divorced, and she went on to get remarried to the man, Greg. My mother moved her husband and his daughter, Kylie, 26 female, from his previous marriage into our house, and I lived with them before I left for college. I remained in minimal contact with them until Kylie joined my company and started working in my department. Nobody was aware of our relation since we had different last names, and I had told Kylie not to disclose anything about this. Last Friday, while clocking into work with a few of my co-workers, Kylie came up to me to ask if I could come home for a family dinner. By lunch, our entire department was gossiping about it, and Kylie would confirm their suspicions. Fed up, I told the department that I do not have a sister. Things died down at work, and I agreed to make it to dinner considering it was my mother's birthday. At dinner, I was bombarded with questions about why I refused to acknowledge my sister at work, and refused to even call her my sister. Greg told me I was a petty boy for embarrassing Kylie at work, and that he has had enough of me mistreating his daughter. He told my mother that my misbehavior was a result of my parents cuddling. He demanded that I address him as my father and Kylie as my sister, and to tell everyone at work that too. At that point, I had enough of his relentless chastising, so I told him that all he signed was a marriage certificate, and not adoption papers, so I am not his daughter, therefore will not be addressing him as my father. I brought up the fact that I know my dad had created an account for my college fund and paid child support each month, but they used the funds to purchase a new car and to pay off credit card debt. Back then, they told me that I would have to get a part-time job to help with paying off college, because money was tight since they just got a new car. I always found it weird that Kylie never had to get a job to go to college and could afford to stay in a nice apartment during. Kylie was crying by the end of the argument. My mother broke down and yelled at me to stop, while Greg called me an ungrateful witch. I told them that if they only have the capacity to acknowledge and care for one daughter, then do not expect me to be in Kylie's life as her big sister, and left the house. I guess Kylie posted about it in social media because friends and family called me up. Some told me I was being harsh and unfair to Greg and my mother who took care of me, as well as Kylie who had nothing to do with this, while some understood where I was coming from. So, am I the a-hole for doing this? Now for the top comments. They stole your money. Sue the hell out of your cheating mother. To be honest, I'd stop calling her mother. Cheaters don't deserve any better. Yeah, if she was 19 and received money from her father that the mother and stepfather stole, then that's theft. Why did the dad not just give it directly to the daughter though? Opie might have been living with her mom during that time. I think some places require you to pay child support not until the child is 18, but independent. I guess Kylie posted about it on social media. This is where I have a problem with Kylie. I was a bit miffed that she alluded towards a relationship at work when you had previously told her not to, and now she has turned a private argument into a sympathy farming session. I don't like how she's playing this. Not today, Hull. You seem to have handled yourself really well with Greg. Blended families are complicated. It doesn't help that step-parents sometimes want to overstep. Yeah, I wonder why as well. Like, she asked Opie in front of all colleagues when clearly nobody knew about the relationship, and then informed the parents about this and then again on internet. Feels to me like she's manipulating to get sympathy. But the worst is the mom. Clearly sacrificed her own daughter over husband and stepdaughter. She is the a-hole. Thank you for the overwhelming response. I'm still in the middle of reading all your responses, but there seem to be parts that are confusing, and I couldn't elaborate due to the character limit, so I thought I'd clear things up here. Where I'm from, a lot of people live with their parents when they're in college, but I lived with them for a couple of months before college. Child support is mandated until 18, but my dad wanted to make sure I'm well taken care of, so he continued until I was independent at 21. My dad left me 2/3 of my tuition fee, and it was decided that my mother would pay the other 1/3. Unfortunately, child support in my country isn't heavily regulated, so people could get away with not paying, and people can also get away with misusing the funds. In my case, my dad deposited the money in a joint bank account that had both my mother's and my name on it. She can move funds in and out of that account without needing my permission. Conversely, I could too if I knew about it. And where I'm from, it's really common for parents to have joint accounts with their children, so it makes sense why she got away with that. My dad moved out of state and eventually out of the country, but we're still in close contact with one another. I didn't tell him about the job or having to pay for college myself because I didn't want him to worry. I also didn't find out about the college fund until finding the bank book and statements in the safe right before moving out. At that point, I just decided to cut contact and get out of there because there was already no point in arguing. About Kylie, my boss and HR know that Kylie is my stepsister, but that information is kept private and confidential. Our workplace has the tendency to gossip, and Kylie refers to me as her sister around family and friends. I ask if we can maintain our relationship at work strictly professional, which means not referring to me as her sister because I didn't want our co-workers to think that she got into our company because of our relations. She agreed. As for her social media post, she posted a solemn picture on Instagram and captioned, "Tonight is the most terrible night of her life because her family was breaking apart." When prompted in the comments, she elaborated on how I blew up at them and said I would be cutting ties. While I understand that Kylie is innocent and that I shouldn't extend my resentment from my mother and Greg towards her, so I treat her like a co-worker, but I can't bring myself to see her as my family or a friend, and I'm finding it's even harder to do so after her social media post. Sorry for a super long comment, and I hope this clears a few things up. If there's anything else that's confusing, I would be glad to elaborate. Kylie isn't so innocent. I'm willing to bet that she didn't include why you blew up at them or why you wanted to cut ties. She's old enough to know what her father and mother did. She's making you look bad in order to get sympathy and attention. You did nothing wrong, but they did, including Kylie. Next story. Would I be the a-hole if I ask my ex to stop having our daughter call his new girlfriend Mom? So my ex-husband and I got a divorce several years ago. I got remarried in January 2021, and he started dating someone that same month. My ex-husband knocked up his fairly new girlfriend, and our daughter 8 is starting to show resentment towards them. When I got remarried, my daughter started calling my husband Daddy. It was completely unprompted. I asked her about it, and she said that she felt like he was her daddy, and that's what she wanted to do. My ex-husband freaked the hell out and ended up screaming at her. She told me about it happening when I picked her up and she was crying. I talked to my ex and he apologized to me, but never to her. I now have my daughter in therapy because of multiple things he has been saying to her, which the therapist told me not to inform him that she's going. Now, I really worry about my daughter's mental health. My daughter told me today that her father has been telling her to call his new girlfriend Mom, since she's going to be giving birth to a new sibling. My daughter is already upset about the new baby and doesn't want anything to do with it. I have no idea what to do. My husband has been in my daughter's life for multiple years, and no one told her to call him daddy. This new girlfriend has only known my daughter for a few months, and her father is pushing her to call his girlfriend mom. Would I be the a-hole if I asked my ex to stop, or if I talked with a girlfriend? Note: just for clarification, I would have no issue with my daughter calling her father's new wife mom if that was something my daughter felt was right. But her father is the one insisting, and this is a woman my daughter has only seen a total of 10 times. I personally call my own stepdad and stepmom dad and mom. My daughter doesn't not like the new girlfriend, but she's admitted that she doesn't feel comfortable with her as well. Not today, Hall, but talk to the therapist about how to handle this. The way her father treats her is horrible. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. According to OP, the therapist doesn't even want OP to inform dad that daughter is in therapy. Yeah, I'm a bit suspicious of that statement. And if it is true, I'd suggest OP find a new therapist. Any therapist who encourages dishonesty over finding healthier ways to communicate is not very good. Sorry, I wasn't very clear. The therapist doesn't want her father to know just yet, due to the nature of the therapy and that he's been emotionally/mentally abusive. He will be brought into the sessions at some point, but the therapist wants to wait until she knows it's safe for my daughter. Not day Hall. Explain to your daughter she can call the parental figures in her life what she wants, and feel no guilt. He doesn't want your daughter calling her stepdad daddy, but wants his daughter to call her stepmother mommy? No, ma'am. He's trying to have the best of both worlds. Update. Holy cow, I didn't expect to get so many responses, and I have been reading through as many as I can. I see a lot of people mentioning lawyers. I have a lawyer, and he is aware of everything. He said that currently there is nothing I can do because there hasn't been physical harm, but we are noting everything. He also said when there's enough evidence from the therapist, we can petition the court for supervised visitation until he receives therapy/anger management and is cleared to see her on his own, but it would be virtually impossible to take away all of his rights to her without evidence of physical mistreatment. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not inviting my former stepmother and stepsister to my wedding? My parents divorced when I was 3. Dad remarried when I was 9, and he died when I was 19. After his death, his wife's stepdaughter and I didn't really keep in touch with each other. That was more my choice than theirs. I was never particularly close to them, and had spent more time with my mom than my dad while they were married, because of the distance he lived from us. And when he was gone, I didn't see a point in staying in touch. My grandparents continued to keep in touch with them though, and even told them when I got engaged, and then when I sent invites out last week. After, they got upset about not being invited, both them, and my grandparents started giving me crap for it. My grandparents gave my former stepsister my number and she gave it to her mom. I heard everything from they're still family to it's a slap in the face when people ask why they aren't there. After 7 years of no contact, I wasn't expecting this. My grandparents expressed real disappointment in me though, which is why I came here. With everyone pissed at me and thinking of me as the a-hole, I had to ask. So tell me, Reddit, am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Relationships are two-way streets, with both sides needing to make an effort. If either side wants to participate in the fun events like weddings, graduation parties, and baby showers, then they need to put in the work of weekly/monthly communication to have that expectation. This. I have an older stepbrother who I have had 3 conversations within 16 years. I still consider him family, but just distant. If you want to be close, got to meet at least part way. Not the a-hole. It's your wedding. You and your partner choose the guests based on their significance in your lives. Not the a-hole. Why is your grandma creating drama for you when you're getting ready to get married? That's just rotten of her. If you don't consider the stepmother and stepsister to be family because you never developed a bond with them and didn't see them much while your dad was alive, your feelings and reactions are totally understandable. Is your grandma bored? Lonely and miserable without much to do besides creating drama where she can find it? Why on earth is she handing out your number to people without asking you first? Sorry to tell you this, OP, but your grandma is the huge a-hole in this situation. I figure this must be your dad's mom, so she considers your stepmom to be her daughter-in-law and thus her family. Still no reason to try and force that BS onto you. Sorry you're dealing with that. It's not just my grandma, but both my grandparents on my dad's side. Tell them your ex-stepmother and stepsister are not your family. You had little to do with them when your dad was alive, and you've had no relationship with them since he died. Tell them to stop talking about you to them, that they're only creating unnecessary drama by doing so. And if they don't, you'll have to limit contact with them. Tell them you're blocking your ex-stepmother and stepsister, and you will not discuss it further. Your ex-stepmother and stepsister are literally strangers to you. They aren't even distant extended family who you see a few times a year. You don't have to spend money on entertaining them for appearances. People, other than your grandparents, will think nothing of them not being there, as they haven't been part of your life for over 7 years. Shut your grandparents down, and then refuse to discuss it further. And don't waste mental energy thinking about it either. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for expecting my ex to treat all his kids the same? My ex-husband Paul and I have 3 kids together. Since splitting, we have both found new partners and he has had another child, Ollie, with his new partner, Becky. My children spend every other weekend at their dad's. My daughter is about to turn 13 shortly, and it falls in Paul's weekend. Ollie and my daughter have an 11-year age gap, and Ollie was born the day after my daughter's birthday. We hoped that as the 2 children were born on different days, that there would be no problems. The whole family made running jokes through Becky's pregnancy about her crossing her legs tightly for my daughter's birthday, as her due date was so close. Paul and Becky have decided to have a birthday party for Ollie on my daughter's birthday, and also celebrate hers on the same day. My daughter was very unhappy that she will turn 13 and has to go to a toddler's party, and has to stay home that weekend and have a sleepover with their friends instead. I have contacted Paul to see if this is okay, and he had a go at me for messing with the plans. Am I the a-hole for expecting him to accept his 13-year-old daughter wants her birthday to be about her? Ollie is so young and doesn't know the date, so surely his party can be any other day? Thanks for reading. Not the a-hole. How can he possibly think she wants to share a birthday with a toddler at the brink of her teens? Her birthday is for her, so I don't blame her or you. One birthday celebrated on Saturday and one celebrated on Sunday. Easy peasy. Not the a-hole. Especially if she wants a sleepover as opposed to a kid's party. She could have had a cake and sleepover party with her friends, and family could wish her happy birthday the next day at Ollie's party. Not the a-hole. For X, it's convenient. Ollie probably won't remember. But your 13-year-old will. X made these plans without considering 13-year-old feelings about it. She wants to sleep over. How does that ruin his plans? If 13-year-old doesn't want to go, she shouldn't have to. It's her birthday, not X's. It does not inconvenience him in any way. You're the one who will be watching over the sleepover. If X wanted to be a part of the celebrations, he should have asked 13-year-old what she wanted. I highly doubt that the ex planned any of this. I bet the stepmom planned a birthday party for her child on her stepdaughter's birthday. She can't see her obvious favoritism, so she believes having a cake and presents for the 13-year-old on the same day is equal acknowledgement. She wants a sleepover. How does that ruin his plans? He's not worried about his plans being ruined. He's worried if his family and friends will judge him for celebrating his 2-year-old's birthday on the older child's birthday. If she's there and gets a token cake and presents, it's all good. If she chooses to stay with mom, then everyone knows she's unhappy with the favoritism. Isn't it Jane's birthday? Where is she? That above is what he wants to avoid.